All right, our monitor is taking us now to Ukraine. A residential 9-story building completely battered in Ukraine's northeastern region overnight after a Russian missile strike. The blast prompting firefighters to battle fires, consumed cars, and rescuers were rushing to carry people to safety there. The attack killed at least 10 people, including 2 children. Now, this all comes with news of a major policy shift in the region. President Joe Biden giving the green light to lift restrictions that will allow Ukraine to use U.S.-provided weapons to defend themselves. The Army tactical missile systems can go as far as about 190 miles and will help Kyiv strike deep into Russian territory. Now, a Russian lawmaker reacting to the news saying the decision risks, quote, the start of World War III. CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd joins us now. Sam, thanks for being with us. Can you walk us through the capabilities of these types of weapons and how they will potentially impact the conflict?
Certainly. The authorization that President Biden gave means that Ukraine now has the ability to use longer-range ballistic missiles to strike about 190 miles away from where these ballistic missiles are deployed. In particular, these missiles, when deployed by the Ukrainian forces, could hit areas where we currently have large concentrations of Russian and North Korean soldiers, equipment, and command and control centers. So these longer range missiles, the authorization to them comes after the president had already authorized the use of relatively shorter range missiles, about 50 miles or so, several weeks ago. So these longer range missiles can be used to strike into areas where we have North Korean and Russian assets in an area known as the Kursk region, and ostensibly could stymie or thwart Russian and North Korean advances through that region and ultimately further into Ukraine.
And Sam, these missiles have been deployed inside Ukraine, as you mentioned, for months, but this will mark the first time they'll be permitted for use inside of Russia. Why that change and why now? And how big of an issue is it related to those North Korean troops in Russia?
Well, what the media is being told is that the authorization came, what really led to President Biden's change of heart, is the presence of North Korean soldiers, about 10,000 or so, that have deployed to Russia and are deploying as part of Russia's war effort against Ukraine. That it was the presence of those North Korean troops that was the deciding factor for President Biden. At the same time, we do know that the incoming Trump administration has voiced a different perspective about U.S. security assistance for Ukraine. We've had the vice president-elect, the president-elect, and others really throw some cold water on whether the current level of U.S. support for Ukraine will continue. So there are theories that this is an effort by the Biden administration to try to change the tide of the war before the Trump administration does come into office. I will note, however, that the U.S. government went into this decision-making process understanding that there will likely be repercussions, not just for Ukraine, but for the United States itself. The Department of Defense, likely the Department of Homeland Security, the intelligence community, and others have likely prepared detailed playbooks about how to prepare for and respond to any kind of Russian attack against the United States, whether it be in the physical space or, more likely, in cyberspace, as Russia hits back against the U.S. for President Biden's decision.
Yeah, and Sam, it's worth noting there are now 50,000 Russian and North Korean troops poised to retake Kursk. No word on when this counteroffensive could potentially start. What are we hearing from Russia on this?
Well, Russia has, as you mentioned in your intro, indicated that there would likely be a sharp response against both the United States and against Ukraine for President Biden's decision. Russia, in the last day or so, has also refused a ceasefire proposal that didn't have a lot of legs that was put forward by the government of Turkey. And really what we're expecting is Russia to try to, of course, continue the war against Ukraine, but really wait out President Biden's time in office and try to convince the incoming Trump administration, and in particular Trump himself, that it's time to diminish U.S. security support for Ukraine and to lead to some kind of negotiated settlement. We do understand that the vice president-elect has at times voiced support for allowing Russia to keep the territory that it seized. So again, I would imagine that the Russian government is threatening the United States and Ukraine for this decision by the president, while ultimately waiting out President Biden's time in office, expecting a change in policy by President-elect Trump.
CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd, thank you so much, Sam.